Welcome back. You have returned to the loka of the Dharma. Your star map guide shows you that we are in the Akshi Upanishad galaxy and getting wonderful teachings from the sun god who shines on all galaxies as non-dual wisdom, and showing it up in the mind of some kriti as he's repaired inside to it, as the scripture says itself. I like that phrase. He repaired inside to the sun god. Repaired. The Old English would be like to move in a sense, but to move to a better place, as it were. So he's gone and left the outer glares and little tiny reflections and lights of the outer world behind, and he's gone back to the source of things, and he wants to find the source of all things as intelligence, which you might say would be the penultimate source of all things. That's not intellect, which is a container for certain amounts of pre-owned intelligence. That is something that you've stored up over lifetimes and you call your own knowledge now. But an intelligence with a capital I that Lord Buddha named himself after, the buddhi, that is a ready store of knowledge of the source of things at their seed essence. And that's what we're trying to reach when we dive deep into an Upanishad in this fashion and take it apart. Even if we're not adept at hearing it or teaching it, and we're just entertaining it for the first time, or you're coming to hear a great scholar or a luminary talk about it when you go to an authentic Dharma teacher to hear it, you're still entertaining it, and you're in that atmosphere, and every once in a while some great spark will happen called an insight, and it will make an opening, and that is that door we were speaking about that you have to knock out at to be opened. If you never sat with your family or with your spiritual family or with your preceptor, as they did in old times in India, go to see the guru, who was just up the street. Maybe you even gave your son and daughter to him when they were young for a while, so they could be right in that atmosphere. But if you've never done that, then you've never put yourself in that atmosphere, nor allowed yourself the opportunity to have one of those insights. So they call that superficiality or mundanity or mundane human convention, or ignorance dwells there and breeds there. So to do something new, to do something refreshing, to even hear about the truth. What to speak of, as we chanted yesterday morning at meditation, to meditate upon the truth and then to realize it is not given to most people. So you open up that atmosphere and you make it a possibility for people to come in. And in the Western culture today, in this particular age, where the distractions are many, and the workloads are hard, and making a living is difficult, then to act as a protector for society and for individuals in the society who have yearning for higher truth, then it's one of the padas of Shiva, is to keep the Dharma there no matter what. It's not about you, it's not about organizations, it's not about any of that, but just keeping the Dharma present for certain people to come along and be able to have that experience. I mean, our founder, Lex Hixon, was all about that too, in many different religious worlds. He used to say, I hold joint citizenship in the different religious traditions of the world. So he felt like he was a protector and a officiate, someone who would share wisdom from whatever particular platform he sat on. Like he was here at the college in town here once, and he put four chairs on the stage and then sat in each one. Now I'm going to speak from Greek Orthodox Christianity. Now I'm going to speak from Tibetan Buddhism. Now I'm going to speak from, and he put non-duality as one of the chairs. He said, now this Advaita makes all the rest possible, not as existence in their own right, but as connecting them all together to show the essence inside, or beyond the outside in all of them. So I'm just saying, as they say, to sit in, it's not given to a lot of people to sit still and listen deeply to something that has been thought over, not only by your teacher, but by generations of teachers. Guru Parampara, they call that in Sanskrit, has been rolled over the mind and the tongue forever, really, and will continue to be rolled over forever. Is a wonderful opportunity, and will place an ordinary person in that atmosphere, and they'll have an aha moment. Oh, I remember that. They're really, you're connecting them to their own sun god, to Surya Narayan. You've got a direct line now. You see, other people just have to make a collect call, but you've got a direct line. So that's what's happening as you rejoin us here in the second half, after we've had some wonderful Indian chai made by one of our friends and devotees here, and refreshed ourselves. Really enjoyed that. We were talking about that at the break, how enjoyment, isn't that forbidden to the yogi? But Swami Vivekananda used to say, most people enjoy, but they don't have exquisite enjoyment. If they really had exquisite enjoyment, it would be like, instead of just watching the sunset and going, that's pretty, but you actually sit there for maybe an hour before the sun goes down, and after it passes, the last light and the stars coming out, that's exquisite enjoyment, because you're going to see the meaning behind the continual rising and setting of the sun. You're the stationary witness. You'll see that every night. But you could see it from a Mike standpoint, or you could see it from the standpoint of, this is my sun rising, and this is my Surya Narayan teaching me in all the movement, and I'm the immovable principle that has to be reminded of that. So with a cup of good chai, I said, why are you enjoying that? I said because I'm not guilty. See, if I have pack of cigarettes in my pocket and I'm smoking all the time, then I'm guilty. I know it's not good for me, so I'm smoking guilt with every puff, taking my own guilt in. And besides just the habit of doing it, then I'm not even getting any enjoyment. Really, my enjoyment is post-mortem. Enjoyment is the next cigarette I'll enjoy, the next cigarette I'll enjoy. So I'm thinking of the next while I'm puffing this. I'm not really in the moment enjoying this puff. So if you remove the guilt out of the quotient, then it would be like saying, here's a cup of tea, I'll enjoy this. Maybe in 2 months I'll have another, who knows? If he comes and makes me one, and I'll have one next time I'm here in May, but I didn't have one for 2 months and I didn't miss it, you see. So you take guilt and greed and lust and anger and various things out of the quotient. And that's kind of where we're going here with these next two charts. This is what we left off with last time, a gift from another student here, before we get to the guilt and greed and hatred and the ankushalas, the unwholesome roots, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. Let's read these quotes because we wanted to read all three of them. We didn't get to all of that last time. So the quote here in the middle of this 7 stages is, the first stage is an ambrosial sprout. So if you enter into yoga as an official practitioner of yoga, and you've, as they said here, gone beyond transmigratory life, the idea of transmigratory life, you've gone beyond it, then you're said to be not just noble, because you could have been noble before but not very illumined. Maybe your nobility was an egoic nobility kind of thing, or I did good kind of agent idea. But here, you've reached an ambrosial sprout, the first stage. This is really a nectar-like, and you really do feel the freeing effects of it. I've noticed that about people first entering into the path, whether it be the path of meditation or the path of study or the path of bhakti with singing and dancing. They have this new fresh energy about them, like it's a real nectar that they're having for the first time. And again, hopefully that guilt won't creep in and you'll get attached to any given thing and spoil it. You can keep that refreshed feeling all the time about spiritual life. As our founder, like Sixteen, used to say, you need to be reborn, every day in your spiritual life. You need to get up every day, and we'll actually do that, a little of that at the next retreat. Next weekend is go through the 9 practices of when you rise every morning. Nitya Sarga, you arise positive and so forth, and then you ask of the Lord what you want and so forth. You after you wash your hands and so forth, you have these practices that you could do every day to make sure that you remain pure, and you are reborn into your path every day, and you are. So the first stage is an ambrosial sprout, and is the internal cleansed birthplace of the other stages. So it is ambrosial because it's pure, and you feel the purity in it. Yoga, I'm in yoga now. I've got back to yoga. And now, back to yoga. Among these early stages, the third stage is superior, for it is here that the sadhaka outgrows the tendency to imagine, and thereby get ensnared by his own mind in Maya. Very well put, as if the sun god was seeing people get ensnared by their own minds in Maya all the time for centuries and millennia. And that's the samskaric land that he's shining on. He's shining on saint and sinner alike. So he's seen this in both cases. He's seen people get free, and he's seen many, many more souls stay bound or fall into bondage, or bondage of their own mind. So the word here, imagination, if you transferred it back into the Sanskrit, would probably be sankalpa and vikalpa. That is, kalpa in time. Sankalpa would be a kind of imagining in time. Kalpaniya is the actual word in Sanskrit. So you're having imaginings in time. So that's why they call life kind of dreamlike. The best thing we can think about, since we don't really know about our deep sleep state being close to the light, and nor do we have samadhi, or even know about samadhi, most of us, or that there's something purely spiritual within us, then we have to think about a metaphor or analogy like dreaming. This is all a dream. Because you can identify with that at a certain part when your karmic cycles come back, or when the gunas switch. Like when you realize that karma is the agent and you're under its sway, then that's a kind of an aha moment, you see, because you don't want to be under the sway of your own actions. What is it that caused your own actions? Your thinking. So it's sankalpa in the mind. So make sure you make the connections. Thought is father to the deed. So the deeds you're doing, the words you're speaking, has all come from the mind. So that's the implication of this third stage, you see. The third stage is where the sadhaka outgrows the tendency to imagine. And they're just seeing things as they are, and they're not projecting anything more in it. They're not adding anything to it like fodder, fuel for the flames. You say, oh, that's enough just to see the sankalpa. And I think I'm actually going the opposite way now. I'm less interested in sankalpa, you see. Om pramadena sandeha kim karishyami vrittiman utpadyante viliyante buddhas cha yata jale. Jale is water. So everyone does sankalpa, see. But the yogi too does sankalpa, but he knows that ignorance is not real. So it doesn't cause him any real doubt. If he imagines, he's doing it, as everyone else is, but he knows that it's not a real process. So when the doubts come around it, or fear comes around it, or anything, he knows that since the ignorance was not real, the fear and the doubt are not real. Others engage into the projection process as if it were real. Therefore, the fears and the doubts will seem real to him, and he'll suffer them. See? So then what should he do? At the end of the day, everyone's doing a projection process. Everyone else is letting the bubbles rise to the surface. He's dissolving them before they get there. So what does the yogi do with his sankalpic projections? He lets them rise spontaneously, and then dissolves them like bubbles into water. Buddhascha yata jale. That's taking apart a sloka from the Ashtavakra Samhita or Avadhuta Gita. So you think about that. I heard that years ago, and I thought about it every day. See, they say it's a divine distraction. You see people distracted all the time, right? But we see Vivekananda walking around. Boy, he seems restless, pacing back and forth. And you stop him and say, "Is that Rajas?" He says, "Oh no, I am in divine distraction. I'm thinking way ahead, to solutions that people have for problems nowadays that they're not ready to apply yet." And so he's working out the whole karmic morass inside of a few pacings, you see. And all based upon knowing the truth, that the projection process was not real. Their projection process is not real. Save me, and save me from them, he used to say. "Oh, Mother, save me, but save me particularly from them," because they're into the American race or the next yuga or whatever it is, as if it were something real in time. And they're investing their whole energy into that. See, their prana and all, as we just sang, Natcha prana sangha, namai panchavayu. I'm not the prana and I'm not the 5 koshas and so forth. So it's just a very slight 2% shift of the mind's perspective away from this one bit of chaff. You see, a very big piece of chaff in the wheat and the chaff situation. That's is the world real or not? And when I find out it's unreal, can I detach from it and reach the 3rd stage through analysis? Can I really detach from it and leave it go? Get thee behind me. It's a nice way of saying it. So from an ambrosial sprout, which is a cleansed birthplace for yoga, to the other stages, till finally imagination begins to be less compelling. You don't want to engage in that. And you probably won't want to engage in creation either, creative things. I mean, my teacher said something very amazing on the podium once. He said, "Why are you teaching your children creativity? You should be teaching them renunciation. Creativity in the American culture is a danger, don't you see?" Amazing, huh? I mean, so my father, was one of those fathers who, when he saw artistic creativity in his children, he didn't mind it. It wasn't like one of those fathers who says, grow some hair and go to the army. Ballet, poetry, you can't make a living that way. No, they're musically inclined, so give them music. But so I took music, and we took music, all of us, and we made it into our life, you see. But in my case, and my young brother's case, music became a doorway into God. So there was the difference. The creativity was attenuated or tempered by, this is God's voice we're hearing. This is God's music we're playing. And so otherwise I could have just been, we could have just been the next great phenomenal musician, or another, replica of Pablo Casals, or David Oistrakh or something, one of these, another addition to the many, many lines of musicians that have come and gone and are forgotten in time, but along with politicians, doctors, scientists, and everyone else. But you want to become famous among the devotees. You don't want to become famous among people who only remember one lifetime's worth of phenomena, if that, see. They're probably not even able to remember a lifetime of phenomena, because about the 70th year they begin to go silly in their heads, you see. They forget. Their memory goes away. They're not reciting the Gita on the podium like my teacher from memory at 90 years old, because that's all he concentrated on his whole life was these teachings. So he became them, they became him. He was that when he passed, and he will be that when he comes back. Otherwise you concentrate on the thorns of life, have a nice succession of camel lives, everyone, you see. Eating thorny bushes the rest of your lifetimes. So that's a beautiful quote then about, and it's further on, like I said, around Sloka 29. I'm jumping ahead to give you these quotes to kind of put these stages into perspective. It made me think of this. Kamalakanta Haye Branta Bhule Shonamashanadin Kamalakanta Haye Branta Bhule Shonamashanadin Bare bare ashi dukha rashi rashe Bare bare ashi dukha rashi rashe Jatane shabe arkadin shukir Ashana karo arkadin shukir Ashana karo arkadin Daji anyobo kali kali bo Mano bojano mojadin O tui taji anyobo Kali kali bo Mano bojano mojadin Shukir bashana karo arkadin Shukir bashana karo arkadin Oh, mind. He's always talking to his mind. See, bewildered by Maya. This singer, this devotee of the mother who's singing this song, has forgotten the 9 months and 9 days of suffering in his mother's womb. Misery and pain are the outcome of limited existence, and so how many more of these kinds of lives can I bear? These lives of ignorance, how many more can I bear? So you could see this man has definitely at least arrived at the state of, I think I want out of transmigratory existence. See? Thinking about it. It's Kamalakanta. It says, Kamalakanta, Haye Branta, delusion, Branta. How much more delusion can I bear? And so, Swami Nikhilananda said that to our founder once. He said, well, I'm still very attracted to women in his younger age, you see. And Swami Nikhilananda says, well, then Lex, just figure, how it feels to be caught in the womb for 9 months. How that feels. You see. This monk sitting next to him in the car, right, telling him this, Lex told me this story. So we forget that. And, the Tibetans haven't. The Tibetans will tell you how painful it is to be there when the body gets formed. All the bones and the marrow, the sinews around it, the nerves, everything is beginning to develop, put together into a package there. And so they've found out a way to keep consciousness from that process. There's this, so I heard it once said by one of the Tibetan lamas, there's sagittal suture here. That's the last thing to close. As if you're corking something in a bottle. See? So they wait for everything to develop in the fetus, and then just before it's going to pop out of the mother's womb, they say, oh, I think I'll get in now. Sew it, and they come out, wah, wah. And then a couple of years later, a bunch of tulkus or rinpoches show up at the mother's door and say, can we have your baby? You see? Oh, Deirdre, get that one, will you? So, take him, and because he's an incarnation of the next tulku or rinpoche or lama or Dalai Lama even, or Karmapa, in the case of my Tibetan teacher, he's been reborn again. So I'll have to go see if he remembers me from his last lifetime someday. Not that remembering your personality is the thing. That's kind of a talk at a New Age party. I was the Mary Queen of Scots, or I was Beethoven or whatever. But nobody says I was the street sweeper for King Janaka or something. Nobody ever says that. So it's not the personality we remember when we look at our past lifetimes. It's the essence we were all the time. And how far did we realize that essence in each lifetime? Otherwise, if I didn't at all, then I'm just having these rebirths full of suffering. They start with suffering. Suffering goes on during your life, and at the end, in death, there's suffering. Holy Mother said that to us. She said, you know, oh, birth and death are very painful. May you never have to experience them again. That's what she told people. And hearing that truth made us think of her as the Divine Mother of the universe and take refuge in her. Because I've heard other female teachers, or so-called teachers, try and make the world nice for you. See? Oh, the world's okay, I'm all right, you're all right, and so forth. Those mantras. Nothing's ever all right in Maya. And you have to be on guard about it. But everything's always blissful in the land of awareness. Who said that? Huh?
Milarepa.
Milarepa, the great Tibetan songster. See, like Kamalakanta, he would sing you a song if he saw you. And if you weren't a very nice person, he'd sing exactly what he saw. And otherwise, walking along a mountain path, he bumps into you, he wouldn't talk to you, he'd sing at you. So some of his songs, he said that here in this beautiful land, in the cave where I live, Milarepa, I have one cloth, and everything around me is blissful awareness. The monkeys are playing in the trees, the birds are singing joyously, and I, Milarepa, sit here in yoga, in bliss. Beautiful songs. Drinking the Mountain Stream, I think that book is called. And Lex Hickson, our founder, used to quote those songs, turn them into English and so forth, and speak them over WBA radio back in the 70s and 80s. That was some of the first exposures we had to them. And being read to us, you know, and to the whole population of New York who would tune in to that radio show at times. You know, a cross-section of thousands of people were getting their first exposure. So maybe they couldn't sit with a guru like this, like you're doing, and you know, and really deeply contemplate, you know, with your eternal companions. And in the Sangha, you know, go deep with this and spend a few hours of 3 hours of your week, you know, the many hours of your week, with the Sun God and his sons and daughters, like Holy Mother. That's a great blessing. So that song reminded me of that. He says, "Oh friend, how long will you cling to this empty desire for earthly happiness?" Well, only so long as I haven't reached the first stage of yoga. Then transmigratory life doesn't seem so alluring to me. And later on, when I analyze, neither will imagination and creation seem so attracting to me. At about the time creation, the desire for creation disappears, is about the time I meet Lord Brahma inside of me and say, will you take back this world that you projected? Yo Brahmanand vidadati purvam vedamscha prahinohi tasmai tanha deva atmaburi prakasha mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye. That one who projected Lord Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva at the beginning of a cosmic cycle, and who gave the Vedas to Lord Brahma, is the eternal bridge to immortality. I take refuge in that one who makes our understanding aware of the Atman. I take refuge in that Brahman. So you'll maybe tire of creation, preservation, destruction, whether it appears to you as a world in space and time, or whether it appears to you as being born with another mother in another womb, having another life and having another so-called death. You'll tire of that. And that's a healthy aversion that you've just developed. A healthy aversion. And as Dalai Lama once told me in person when I played music for one of his talks, Jaiman music, he said, we Tibetans look forward to the time of our death. Sort of like one of the Indian chiefs, it's a good day to die. I remember him saying, it's a good day to die. Might as well be now, I'll sit here, see, my life's over. So that is mastering death, isn't it? Message of the Katha Upanishad. If you're not afraid of it anymore, you've probably realized it's an illusion, and that you can take as many bodies as you want from your mind. Your subtle body produces the gross bodies. Your parents were just the vehicles for it. So you can't really blame them. They wanted a child, it's their desire. Well, you can fulfill their desire, hopefully, in a good way. Be born as a good child to them. And make something meaningful out of the whole process. But it is a process, and he's saying here in the third stage, you get tired of processes. Nature is a process, and it's a vast process in an unimaginable flux of time and space and change. And here you are just coming in, every once in a while into this linear view of time, and you're stuck in time, you're contained. The Sagittal Sutra closes on it, and you're in time, and you're in space, and you're in the body, and you have an ego, and you have a name, and you have a form, and cause and effect starts right there. See, karma starts breeding right there. Name, form, time, space, causation, Maya. That's the meaning Vivekananda gave for Maya. So, Lord Vasishta says, the Videha Muktis come in straight from Brahman with no cause. See what's there, help who they can, and never come back again. The Jivan Muktas, which were mentioned here, they come in with no cause, straight from Brahman, and they see what's there and want to take several lifetimes, and so they'll get down into the collective consciousness. There's a chart on this with a big sinkhole, the waves going down this big sinkhole chart, if you remember that. Desires, samskaras, desires, karma is the name of it. So they'll come in and they'll help people over time. And people who are caught in things like this, maybe we should get on to that. I don't know if we showed, I don't think I showed you the camel chart last time because I just created it. I finally found a vision that I was looking for in my mind and some images to put together around Sri Ramakrishna's story about the camel eating thorny bushes. So I said, well, yes, I can put that together. Found a few images and was able to do that. So this is in accordance with slokas, what we're talking about here, and sloka 13, which mentions these akushalas. As a snake sheds its slough, so sheds he, even a slight attachment to external objects, when they are intensified by pride, conceit, intolerance, greed, and delusion. So 2 of the 3 ankushalas are mentioned in that sloka, the Buddhist ankushalas. These are the 3 unwholesome roots, would be how they sometimes, and I showed you that chart, and showed you how all the meaning of what is there. If live streaming audience wants to see that again on the screen, they can. But I want to, since we've shown that, and we know that basically this is what's called hatred and greed and so forth. It's right in accord with that sloka 13, which has to do with achieving non-attachment. So some people will have to have it shown to them in a gross way in order to engender some little bit of non-attachment. They'll have to have some calamity happen to them, or see something that's from their own karma that's very disturbing. And if you don't have a teacher and a path and you see something very disturbing, that's grounds for depression. That's grounds for denigrating yourself. You don't have any help from your higher self. Your lower self is all, having a pity party, as they say, for weeks or months after you see this particular thing. Or you have a splash of cold water thrown in your face when all of a sudden you meet someone, or you have some experience, or you have a dream or nightmare, and it's too close to the source. So you got too close to that ocean of suffering that's there, and the karma that was yours and so forth that had to do with it as a society or as an individual. And therefore all of a sudden you feel very depressed and very not yourself for a long time. Now, if that same kind of horrible view of the ocean of suffering happens to an enlightened soul, like happened to Ram when he was in his teens, or to Lord Buddha when he left the palace, then it takes a whole different turn. Now it's, I have to free people from this suffering. But the ego gets a hold of it, so this is my suffering, this is real, and I have to look out for myself, and I don't have any tools to do that. I was never taught the Dharma. I never had a guru. My society never had scriptures that told me that this would happen to me. Mama told me not to go. That ain't no way to have fun, son. So, whatever, that's all you have in the Western society is some pop song or something. That's not even getting to the point. So to the point is, I'm here, is that you should be ready for the things that come at you from Maya. And that's why you had your aversion to transmigratory existence being the first sign of your inward ascension. And that left a new kind of sankalpa on you, a new kind of samskara, a new kind of impression. And you're not likely to forget that very soon. You'll hold that for a while until other stages become available to you, or you make those stages available to you. I don't think you should tread water in Maya very long. You should when you see the truth, get a glimpse of it, you should swim right towards it. You should go straight towards it that very day if you can, if not that lifetime. Because forgetfulness comes to everyone, and it can descend again on minds that aren't strong enough yet. Like Vivekananda said, greatest sin to us, and I was talking to that Christian preacher a couple days ago who said that Christianity is really dying or dead, real Christianity. And I asked him, well, what's the greatest sin to you? And he didn't say anything. I said, well, to Vivekananda it was weakness. He said, the only real great sin is weakness, or if you want to put it philosophically, avidya, to the father of yoga. So, you need to have that strength. Strength is manliness, he said. The man-making policy was all about facing the brutes, and like admitting that you do have karma if you can't yet know that God is the only agent, that you do have this karma that you're working out, but you're standing on the bridge, and you're identifying with the bridge, not with the water that's flowing under it. That's actually a metaphor that just occurred to me in the class today. The water goes under the bridge. I said, well, yeah, better would be you're standing on the bridge. Why don't you just identify with the bridge and not the water? Because attention are floating away down the stream of pragbara, samsara pragbara. So, let me get my copy of this camel chart. We can look at it in the remaining time. And tomorrow I have some other good charts to show you. One's called The Attainment of the Rare Jnanam. That's also a new chart I want to show you tomorrow. But looking at Sri Ramakrishna's story, it went basically like this out of the gospel, the gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Because it reminds me of, so when I travel sometimes, I'm subject to the TV at airports and stuff, so I might look at it. And so one Muslim teacher who's very popular nowadays, he's actually a doctor, and so staunch Muslim, and so he stands up in front of everyone. A Hindu man asks him a question about I'm a Hindu, but I'm attracted to other religions. I respect all other religions, and so I don't know whether he's really confused. He said he's confused, or whether he's just kind of poking the piñata to see what he can get out of this Muslim teacher. But the Muslim teacher automatically says, here's the Quran, and this is the truth. And the man is asking, what about all the other religions? And he said, well, they were fit for their time, but this is the most recent and recent religion. Now this is what you need to follow. So I was thinking, okay, but then I thought, if I had a microphone and I was standing next to him, I would raise up the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and said, well, is the book closed? Doesn't both the Quran and the Bible both say that you can never close the book on teachings of God? So here, Sri Ramakrishna is now the new dispensation. This Gospel is what you need to be reading for the day and time, and all deference and all reverence to Muhammad and to all religions that went before. So anyway, that occurred to me in my own mind. I was doing analysis from the second stage when I saw that person talk about it. First, I was inclined to accept what he said, and I thought it was good that the Hindu man was interested in giving him credence and all that. But then I thought, well, there's some holes there. Other religions, just because they're old doesn't mean that they stopped being pertinent to groups of people that follow them. See, like Holy Mother would say, you can't pull the rug out from under people just because you have a higher religion or a higher non-duality. They still are operating at the level of duality. So you need to keep teaching them that way. So even if any religion is particularly a new religion, it's got to be based on the fact that it's caretaking the old religions. I have not come to replace the words of the prophet or destroy them. I've come to enhance them. So Judaism wasn't dying, when Christ was there. The Ten Commandments needed to be re-explained and reapplied to the new age. It's always going to be happening. On our wall there we have Sri Krishna saying the same thing. From age to age I come forth to embody, to destroy the aspects of old religion that are outworn and outdated and superstitious, like perhaps a fundamentalist Christianity of the day, and to resurrect new meanings for that, the new Christ, the new Muhammad, the new Moses, and the new Ramakrishna, who is, chronologically speaking, very new. So all this coming from just mentioning the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, in which this camel story, he says, the camel loves to eat thorny bushes. The more it eats the thorns, the more blood gushes from its mouth. Still, it goes on eating and will never give them up. Similarly, bound creatures entangled in worldliness will not come to their senses at all. They suffer so much agony and face so many dangers, yet they will not desist and wake up. So we're talking about that, the greed, the hatred, and all of that is bred from there. Attachment. From desire to attachment, and then the road of ruin happens. A man loses his own mastery and he becomes a slave to the senses and to their objects. So pretty soon you're a slave to matter. Sound familiar? You're seeking resources, the sources of which are in you, the real enjoyment of which are in you. You can't enjoy them out there because they're fleeting. They're empty. You can't really enjoy anything. Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel said, taste of sweet meat goes down the throat. You can't even remember what it tasted like a minute later. You've got a kind of a foggy notion that I ate something that tasted in some way. So you really enjoy things inside of yourself. That's where the exquisite enjoyment comes, because the self is closer to the thing at its source. And it knows that they're connected. That these are your sankalpas. These are your productions. These are your creations, and they haven't reached a defiled place yet. They're still shuddha, mixed, pure and impure. But when they get out, they're impure. And people are enjoying impure things together all the time, sitting in huge cafeterias and restaurants and so forth, eating and drinking impure things with impure thoughts. With not one thought of God, or even if you don't believe in God or don't want to bring God into the portion, one thought of gratitude to nature for producing them. What to speak of the connections, from earth to taste, from smell, from earth to smell, and from water to taste, and from fire to sight. The connections. Don't you think the sun god is, if you try and repair to his solar kingdom, is going to block the way if you haven't had reverence for fire and sight when you were on earth? These were his manifestations, so Samkriti obviously knows that he had to do everything in a pure way in order to get to Surya, so that Surya would open the way so he could fulfill his first request, which is, teach me Brahma Gyan. I want to know the original wisdom. And it is one, it is unborn, it's tranquil, it's endless, it's certain, it's immutable, and it's tranquil and at ease. Take your pick of any of those or meditate on all of them, and the answer was given in the second sloka, and you can just shut the book and go home if you understand it. But for those who don't, well, here's some 7 stages that someone hopefully will explain to you in some lifetime, and you'll be able to go forward in that way. So that is in the way. This is in the way. And you might say this is an exacerbated condition of sankalpa. Because we've just mentioned that sankalpa is a projection process that everyone's doing, including the luminaries. So how to keep that shuddha, pure, not let it become shuddha, mixed, or ashuddha, impure. How to keep that offering of life and everything as pure as possible and live in that purity, like Holy Mother did. Food must be pure because then it'll give you pure blood. If you got pure blood, you get pure energy. If you have pure energy, you get pure thoughts. If you get pure thoughts, you get pure mind. Oh, guess what? I forgot to tell you. Pure mind is Brahman. So they're living in Brahman. And these things didn't even occur to them. So for people who haven't even reached the first stage of yoga, that is, transmigratory life is impure, the idea that I come and go is not true. It's a lie been told to me by myself and by the collective consciousness of at least 3 different worlds. 3 different chakras are telling me this lie all the time, and I'm buying it. See? Hook, line, and sinker. Just like baited hook in the water, I'm biting it. Where death is granted his fishing ground. See? On the surface of relativity, I'm buying it. That birth is real. That 9 months and 9 days of suffering, although forgotten. So all of that comes to mind, but the product of that then, if you want to follow the camel, and he's eating these thorny bushes from the camel tree, it's actually called, I think, something like what do they call camels, and they don't call them camels, they call them... No, they call them something else. Mm-mm. No, it's something like mule, desert mule, or something like some thing like that they call it. So the camels go from place to place, as you can see here, and then they'll find these trees, and they'll eat off them. And actually, if you look it up, you might want to see the inside of a camel's mouth nowadays. They open the camel's mouth, and it's just got all these spines and all these calluses and all this evolutionary stuff that's developed so that now when they eat it, they don't have to feel the pain. They've been eating them so long. So there might be a teaching there, too. Someone who's so used to pain that they can just bear with it. But otherwise, you've got the camel there, the picture, a close-up of him with some of these thorns actually going into piercing his cheeks, his jawbone, and in his tongue and so forth. There are tender places in there. So you see some of those thorns I've labeled: desire for pleasure, desire for riches, desire for objects is another thorn, desire for worldly relations, again, without any spirituality or any dharma with them, desire for lands, desire for dominion, which is a big occult power. A real problem with us today is to try and dominate over other races and subject them to us. And finally, the Ishanatrayam, famous Ishanatrayam of Tantra, triple desire for spouse, progeny, and worldly occupations. So these things act as thorns in the camel soul's evolutionary process. And those are the painful thorns of desire-ridden rebirth. Now, down at the bottom, I found a really good accompanying quote from Lord Buddha out of the Dhammapada. A quick study this chart, but it gives you the idea. The tree of desire lives long. The creeper of passion dies hard. Beings beset by craving which is of course over here, circle round and round, like a hare ensnared in a net. Verily, such souls are subject to rebirth again and again. But I say unto you, may you extract the root of desire, like the forager digs below surface weeds for fragrant herbs. For whoso quells desire gains expertise in etymology and terminology, and comes to know the deep meaning in words and letters, and that is a great soul. He bears a physical body for the last time. You see, Upanishad, far before Buddha, was just saying that to us. With a mind disciplined through devotion and shastras, teaching in the company of the virtuous, he truthfully masters the entire body of knowledge, including all the 7 doctrines. He learns all the categories and the doctrines, and learns what is to be done and what's to be avoided. Same, exactly the same. So Buddha, 550 years before Jesus, was nowadays we'd think, oh, it's kind of Zen-like, or no personality, emptiness. Words and letters didn't mean anything to him. Are you kidding me? He studied Samkhya with 3 different teachers before he went into the forest to practice asceticism, and asceticism wasn't the final conclusion for him. So, you master the doctrines. Just because he didn't teach the Upanishads only meant that, and go to the Nastika side of things, Astika side of things, and he became the Nastika side of things. India's great rebel soul, they call him, is just because of all the suffering and how far the Vedic lore had fallen into disrepute and had needed to be taken off and dusted out every age, like Krishna says. But he himself said, here's the 4 kinds of suffering, or 4 noble truths, and then the Eightfold Path, and that's what he based everything on. And the nidanas, the links of birth and rebirth. So he's an expert on that in a more contemporary age. 2,550 years ago is very recent for India. Or you could maybe call it its middle phase. So very beautiful there, but it does also bring out that same sloka 14 and 10 in the Akshi Upanishad. Akshi actually means like akshitam, it means to see, to see out of your third eye. So that's how Surya is the third eye. He's the sun god. He's the sun there, the bindu, and you go to him. You have to transcend the other chakras to be at that 6th chakra, so you can see out of it with him, and he'll tell you what he's seeing. Probably, say, if you went to Yama, like Nachiketas, he's here and here. He's seeing out of this center into this center, because he's taking people beyond death, and death happens at the first 3 centers. And here it doesn't happen anymore. At the heart chakra, you're an unborn, undying soul, and you know it. So you don't return to the 3 lower worlds, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, heaven, earth, and hell, however you want to call it. But with the sun god, you're reaching a very high state, and he's giving you a rendering of truth that's closer to the non-dual. Which is why when we get further into the Upanishad, the next visit, probably not tomorrow because we have some more to study, we'll start looking at deep dream, deep sleep, and what's beyond it. You can see how the word Om and the 3 states of your consciousness went way back, and it's part of the original Vidya of the sun god. Anyone who teaches non-duality will take you to that platform of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep being 3 big steps in you. 3 levels of your own consciousness that you need to connect. Because in this day and age, we've disconnected from Svapna and Sushupti. We only have Jagrat. We only have waking. That's the only thing that's real to us. It's a horrible position to be in. And our most intelligent beings of the day, our savants, are in that same position. And beginning to speak their wisdom to us their lower wisdom to us as being the highest thing or the only thing. Therefore, people are seeking and finding and getting rich, which is a thorn, or they're getting impoverished and suffering, and hating and desiring, which is a worse state maybe. At least a thorn wakes you up. Get a little thorn with your food. I better inspect that better. Though you can see the subtle camel has his psyche too, you see. Eating for generations. And you could say that's why camels are born again and again. They'll seek parent camels, hosts that because they want to get more of that taste of thorny bushes mixed with blood. It's a very good analogy because the thorny bushes taste good, but they cause pain, so it's pleasure and pain is the problem. And the blood that comes from it is as Vivekananda said, those people who prefer pain to pleasure. He said, "Oh, you don't understand," he said to one of his women disciples in America. "There are many people born to enjoy pain just as much as they're born to enjoy pleasure. So there are people who enjoy pain and they enjoy inflicting pain." So this is a whole other cross-section of beings. You might say asuric kind of beings. That was the word used back then. Well, I said quick study, but it had some very wonderful teachings in it, and Sri Ramakrishna and Buddha coming together here 2,500 years apart to explain in very simple terms and also to expand in India's ancient wisdom about how you become free from this kind of thing by etymology, by terminology, by analysis, and by shruti and smriti, and by inquiring at the second stage of your yoga to analyze the things you hear. It can't be overemphasized enough, which is why next month's Hawaii retreat will concentrate on that. The three proofs of truth, and sometimes called the three stages of knowledge. Now, this was in accordance with, as a snake sheds its slough, so sheds he even the slightest attachment to external objects, if they are accompanied by these kinds of things. External objects that aren't accompanied by those things, this is a noble person. So they can take it or leave it. And it's probably just good not to take it for granted when you take it and leave it. Because that would be a kind of callousness. Or I was actually thinking of an analogy last night as I lay in bed, thinking about the mother prepares food for her children every morning. They come down. She's up early. She's working. She's cooking. They come through. They sit at the table. They eat their food, and then they go, and they hardly think of another thing about it. You see, it's like thanks for the meal, mother, or they just take it for granted. But there's a worse position or a worse situation, whereas they don't show up at the breakfast table anymore. That's today, you see. Aren't you going to sit for the meal I cooked? No, I got something in my back pocket here, or I'm going to eat somewhere else, or so it's not just loss of gratitude and all that. It's just that they don't even think or have any kind of fealty, to food as a principle, or to those who supply it, or to nature, as I was saying. Even if you don't believe in or want to bring in a divine entity, then there is the entity of nature and the five elements. So 5 elements make up objects, and so objects, if they're attended by pride, conceit, intolerance, greed, and delusion, they become negative influences on you. They make you sick, and that's where disease comes from. We'll also look at that next week in Bridal Veil. A nice name for a retreat. We'll go to Bridal Veil, where all the waterfalls are, and we'll entertain this beautiful teachings, and some of it having to do about how to keep our mind in a certain asana or set of asanas that keep us pure and living a divine life. Now from here, and with the time remaining, which is just 10 minutes, isn't it? Is it?
Yes.
10 minutes. So let's read 14 again. With a mind disciplined through devotion to the Shastras, those are the scriptures, to the teacher and to the company of the virtuous, that one truthfully masters the entire body of knowledge, including the secret doctrines. So if we were to look at secret doctrines, well, we'll take this chart tomorrow morning first. But then you would be dedicated to the Shastras, and you'd look into them, and you would know why. So these two side by side make a good combination, which we won't have near the time to look at them all. And so that's why I'm not going to take them up. I've decided what I will take up then would be something we can go through that has very much to do with the Tibetan Buddhism aspect I mentioned at class. So let's follow through with that and put it in terms of devotion to the Shastras, to the teacher, and to the company of the virtuous. So that would be the Shruti Yukti Anubhava kind of teaching. Shruti to hear, Yukti to reason, Anubhava to get direct experience of, Anubhava Tattvam, have the principle of a direct experience, like Sri Ramakrishna wanted you to have. Or you can call it Shravana Manana Nidijasana. Shravana to hear the truth, Manana to roll it around your mind, or Nidijasana to realize it. So how does that look in other traditions that are close to ours, like the Tibetans who got this Dharma teaching from Marpa and Milarepa in 1400 or 700 and 1400, the whole time that it developed through that time period, because they've been meditating on it for so long. It was brought over to them. So this chart got a new coloration. It's been with us for a while, but precepts, points, practices, and process of the Vajrayana path. Subtitled Empowerment, Effort, Insight, and Transcendence. Now you know, if you lived through the 80s and 90s and so forth, that the empowerments were being given. They still are to in some ways, but you get it, sit in front of a Rinpoche or a Tulku or a Dalai Lama or a Karmapa like Sixten and I did, and you get an empowerment. So you're in a large group, and then from the empowerment, you walk away and you say, oh, I got empowered. So then they're hoping that you'll then approach the teacher and learn the methods and actually engage. A lot of people don't. They just go away and they got the empowerment and that was it. Sort of like what I was describing in the first half of today's class, is that it's just hearing, but it's not analyzing. Like, the first stage there, you have to analyze it. Vichara in our tradition. So Atma Vichara, how does it look here? You get the empowerment from a great yogi, and that's called Guru Yoga. And that's in two parts. You seek to develop a relationship with the teacher, and you qualify for empowerment and gain the wisdom transmission. And that process is in 4 points. First, they tell you meditate 3 times a day with faith and devotion. Then practice holding the mind in an unmodified state. So, and this is happening sometimes before you concentrate on an ideal with form, like a dakini or a haruka or some sort of ideal. So they want you to develop this ability to not think for a while, because if you clear everything away first and you can just hold that, even if it's an emptiness, then you can put an image there later. Quite often in Vedanta we do it the opposite way. We put the image there first and help that clear away our thoughts, isn't it? And then later on you get to the non-dual. But in this way it follows that way of, give the non-dual first, let that have some effect. You don't understand the effect yet, but it will clear things away, then you can put an image there. So it's a very interesting difference and way of going about it. Third, realize that whatever appears comes from your own mind. What appeared before was a lot of flotsam and jetsam, mental flotsam and jetsam. Like I was thinking about the Turtle River up there in St. Helens Blue, you know. And if you ever saw films of that, you just like that river just became jammed with logs and trees and mud and branches. People were actually having to run across that to escape the lava. But yeah, that was a real mess, that river, when you saw it later. And the whole forests were leveled around it. I was thinking that's kind of like the mind, you know, that's filled with a lot of things. But if you can place your mind in an unmodified state and then watch it appear, you've purified it, and then the ideal that you cherish may start showing itself. Upanishad said it may be like, you know, a light, perfect light, third eye, or it could be the sound of tinkling of cymbals, or the sound of a flute, or a bass drum. You know, various things are appearing in your inner senses. But the advantage here that they're warning you about ahead of time is just know that it's coming from your own mind. They're not veering away from the mind-only schools. In other words, that's not God doing that. It's not a vision of an angel from some heaven that's apart from you somewhere up there. Like, where did I get that vision? Angel Gabriel appeared to me or whatever. Of course it came from inside of me. Was he looking down from a cloud and he said, oh, look, he's meditating. I think I'll like make a version of myself and show myself to him in his mind. No, he was in the mind to begin with. He showed himself from your own mind, and your mind is what's seeing it. So you're not burning bridges. In fact, you're trying to connect the waking to the dreaming, or the outer to the inner. And then hopefully we'll take both of those and connect them back to deep sleep, as we were saying. That you're going towards the fourth step of this Akshi Yoga, 7-stage yoga. You want to get to the dream part of it. It's called Swapna. That's the fourth level. After you analyze, and after you get this non-attachment, isn't it just pretty much like an unmodified state to get non-attachment? And then from there you can get the dream, you see. So you're getting the vision, right, in this tradition. You realize that whatever appears comes from your own mind, though. So you're not falling victim because your teacher and your past told you that that's the case. So you're not wandering off and thinking, you know, that this came from somewhere outside of me, or it wasn't in me to begin with, and and then it fabricated itself out of nothing. See? You purified and it was there. It was always there. And it's in you. So that's a beautiful 4-point process here. The fourth being, meditate constantly until conceptualization disappears. Shall we go back? You see? Should we read the same slokas again? So then conceptualization disappears, right? You learn all the categories and all of that, and then all of a sudden you give up this desire for creation and for sankalpa. Is what we read there. So you can see how this is following along very much the Indian Dharma from far before Tibetan Buddhism, and how they've modified this in their own way into a cogent system for their people of the time, and for the Americans later on who are partaking of it. We have several of them living here at our ashram who are into that path. So we have run out of time, and so we at least looked at the first part of this empowerment. We'll pick this up tomorrow and read the rest of this in accordance with our Upanishad, Akshi Upanishad, so that we're truly seeing the sun god as our witness and our guide. And then we will look at these other aspects of that sloka about the secrets of the scriptures and the doctrines that you're supposed to know, and the categories that you're supposed to memorize, and how to get a hold of those. Again, realizing that they all are there in your mind. You're just reminding the mind of their presence. So here, let's end with the final chant. Om Sato. Om Sato Ma Sadgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrichor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Abira Bira Mayeti. Rudrayate Dakshinamukam. Tenamam Pahinicham. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness into light. Lead us from lower truth to higher truth. Lead us from the unreal to the real. And lead us from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.